Let's talk about that win against NC State and where do they go from here?
You are Locked On Virginia, your daily podcast on the Virginia Cavaliers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good day, viewers and listeners. I am your host, Big Law, Lawrence Johnson, and welcome to the Locked On Virginia Cavaliers podcast, your first place to come to get your Wahoo fix every day. As part of the Locked On Podcast Network, our title sponsor today is FanDuel. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on today to get started. So yes, everybody, the date is 2/9/2023, and this is your Locked On Virginia Cavaliers show. And as usual, we're going to talk a little bit about the win, huge, enormous win against NC State. This was one that I was very, very worried about. It's something that I was probably worried about more so than any other game this year, up until this year, because I really felt like the team had a very positive thing going on with their 7-game win streak. They found themselves. They had a rhythm. They were beating teams. It didn't look like they were uncomfortable. But then they went to Virginia Tech last week, and they got beat. And not only did they get beat, the score doesn't really show how the team really lost. They got beat physically. If you know anything about sports, there's the scoreboard. You can look at the scoreboard and say, man, we lost, but the game was close from a number standpoint. But really, when you get beat physically, to me, it just takes it to a little bit of a different level, a little bit of a different feel when you get beat physically as well. And that's what Virginia was. I think a lot of us Virginia followers, media folks, fans, were worried because it seemed like Tony Bennett had found a starting five that was very, very, very effective. Winning 7 games in a row in ACC play is no joke. I don't care who you are, what team you represent. If you win 7 games in the ACC in a row, that's saying a lot. And for me to feel like this team had arrived then, I think would have been irresponsible. But with Virginia being the team that they are, Coach Bennett being the genius that he is, I did feel like for that Virginia Tech game last game that he got outcoached. For the first time, I feel like he got outcoached for the first time in a long time saying that. I can't even remember the last time I said that. Virginia Tech just dissected their pack line defense, and then when UVA would not double team, their big man, would step out, and Virginia Tech was just making shots. And I was feeling coming into this NC State game that we probably are going to have a similar problem. Number one, they have a monster in the middle, a man named Burns. And Burns had scored 20-plus points in the previous 2 games. And, he kind of ruled the middle. And I was worried that, maybe, just maybe, UVA would almost suffer the same consequences because NC State can shoot from deep as well. As a matter of fact, they're the number 1 scoring team in the ACC. They average almost 80 points a game, like 79.6 points a game, 80 points a game. So they put up points. And a lot of points in a fast manner. But what the difference was with this team is they actually, with UVA, they really took care of the ball. That's something that I was hoping to see, and when they don't turn the ball over, they just become even more efficient than they already are. Because of their pace of play, and Tony Bennett really wants them to squeeze every bit of the juice out of a shot clock. There always seems like they're shooting the ball with only 5 seconds left. But that's how he's conditioned these players and these guys to be cool under pressure, shot clock running down, 7 seconds. It's almost like with 7 seconds, they really start getting into their offense. 10 seconds, 7 seconds, they start really getting into the offense, running their cuts and running their plays. 2, 3, the shots, they're taking their shots with 3 seconds or less, 4 seconds or less on the clock. That's just the pace of play that they play. And it has worked to Tony Bennett's and the University of Virginia Cavaliers' benefit. But playing a team as lightning quick and as troublesome as NC State could be, that was a game that I felt like Terquavian Smith, who is a leading scorer in the ACC, I felt like he was going to explode. He did have a good game against the Wahoos, but in my opinion, I feel like they kept him in check with 19 points. Then, of course, you had Casey Marcel, who played his first 2 years at UVA before transferring to NC State, was met with a ton of boos, in the game as well. But what would you expect from any team on the road that you used to play for? He came back, and it was all good spirits. Tony Bennett. Actually, I heard Tony Bennett went up and spoke to his family after the game, and a lot of the players, and they gave each other hugs and everything. So no hard feelings. But Casey Marcel is had a good game. Actually, had a great game for him. If you remember, Casey Marcel could not shoot when he was at UVA for those 2 years. Just had a terrible offensive game. What he was a really good defensive guard on the perimeter, guarding the best defenders. That has definitely been replaced with Reese, but Casey Marcel was one of those really good wing defenders. But he came in shooting over 40% from three, one of the top three-point shooters in the ACC, which to me, I was just floored to see that. I was so shocked because his shot just looked so bad being at UVA for all these years. He wound up with 18. I want to say he made like 4 3-pointers, and he just kept the team in the game. And the person who really hurt their team, in addition to Burns not scoring, they're used to Burns scoring quite a few points as well, was Joyner. And when Joyner only scored 5 points, just because the defense UVA played, he did a great job of locking down 2 of the top 4 scorers and let pretty much NC State die on the vine. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You've got up to $3,000 back. That's awesome. You get up to $3,000 back on your first bet. That's amazing. You get that back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. This is the time of year where everybody bets. Bracket season is here or just around the corner. Make sure you get this app downloaded because Super Bowl is this Sunday. Get this app so that you can take advantage of these incredible benefits. If there's ever a time you wanted to get into the betting scene, this is it. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. I like the app because it's really easy to navigate. You're looking for something, you can search for it, you put it in, and if you want to bet on it, go ahead and bet it. And once you have it set up, instantly, if you win, money comes right to you. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports book partner of the NFL. But as we're talking about this game against NC State, I kind of feel like, this team really made a huge bounce back. With Caden playing in the game, I felt Caden was really the superstar. I mean, we always talk about, typically in the media, typically with anything else other than UVA, when we're talking about the basketball team, we're talking about offense. Excuse me. Yeah, we talk about offense. But with Virginia, it's about the defense. It seems like Tony Bennett finally, he really got back to his roots, in his roots of having the big man in the middle, a guy who can change shots. Keep in mind, all of their successes as a team, UVA, you're talking about, a guy like Jack Salt in the middle, always the consummate rebounder, picker, someone who can block shots, who can change shots as well. That's what Jack Salt gave that team during their championship year. You actually, in my opinion, have two guys who kind of give you some elements of Jack Salt. Jack, it was just absolutely enormous. Cafaro is probably physically the closest to Jack Salt, but I don't know if Poppy has the basketball acumen of Jack Salt. Even though Jack Salt was more of a defensive player, I just felt like Jack Salt didn't do things to really hurt the team that much. But I know that sometimes the big men for UVA can get themselves in foul trouble and turn the ball over. And maybe it's just because the other players around Jack Salt during that period of time played so well around him that you really didn't see Jack Salt make a lot of mistakes. That's just my opinion. But Poppy Cafaro and Caden Cedric give you different types of elements, or two different types of big men, where Cafaro is more of your strong, bully, energetic, attitude, mood swinging, attitude changing player that you can put into the game to really mix it up with the other team who has another similar type player. Or Caden, who is more of your bouncy, lean, long, athletic gazelle running down the court looking for an alley-oop. So you have two different types of big men, who can really help with this defense. But, this night belonged to Caden Cedric. Caden did an incredible job. I mean, an absolutely enormous thank you goes to him for making sure he kept Burns in check. One thing that I noticed about Burns, especially whenever you're playing a good team, you really see a player's limitation. Either they go up or they go down as far as my expectation of what I've seen from them. Burns, it actually decreased because when I was looking at how Cedric guarded him, he's a big, big man. And I didn't really see him up his game. And I think you also saw his shortcomings with the way that Caden played him. His footwork did not look good. He traveled 2 or 3 times, out there. So it really didn't feel like it was it was a game for him that he wants to see UVA anytime soon. We may see him in the tournament, but he struggles. I think a player like him will probably do well against the physicalness of a Poppy as opposed to the athleticism and length of Caden Cedric. That was pretty much the game, because once they shut him down in the middle, they just turned it loose and said, guys that are on the perimeter, you're guarding the perimeter, don't let a lot of these guys get open shots. And then UVA did a great job of doing the double team on Burns, pushing him out to the perimeter or mid-range and doing an aggressive double team. it almost like he panicked because he threw the ball away a couple times. He held the ball some, became a little bit of a ball stopper, and then he wound up, he didn't score. So that really was an adjustment that I saw Tony Bennett make with us rushing over, doing an aggressive double team. Now, they'll double team you, but they made a really aggressive run with hands waving, and just making it more of a frantic situation, which I love seeing that. And it made the man in the middle who's trying to score, it just made him, panic, in my opinion. And then the guards, UNC has three absolutely, NC State has three absolutely uh, cold, tough guards who can score. And Terquavion Smith, who is the leading scorer in the ACC, he can truly go. That guy put up 25 points in you, 20 points plus in a heartbeat. Joyner, who also averages, in the teens. And then, of course, Casey Morcell, who averages 13 points, 12 points. They run that three-guard rotation. They can really get after you and make you look silly, putting up 80 points and blowing you out. But UVA did a heck of a job beating them 63-50. That's actually a blowout, in my opinion, by UVA standards. That's also a blowout by the standards of they called it something kind of like the committee of for the NCAA March Madness tournament. The committee, anything over 10 points, they say is considered like a blowout. But UVA had a 20-point lead, or right about between 16 to 20-point lead for most of the game before NC State started their climb back into the game. But the UVA had did such a great job in the first half that we really didn't see any, we really didn't see them come back. The closest they got was, I believe, 7 points. And 7 points, I mean, I called it, I've been calling it for years now. You remember those old Boston Celtics teams where, with Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, Dennis Johnson, when they would get up on you by 10 points, it was almost like 20 points because the climb to play against them and try to score against them, they made you work because their team defense was so good. Same thing with those Bulls teams. When they had Rodman or Horace Grant, they would make you grind out your offense. They would make you take bad shots. It was just difficult to get back into the game when they got up on you by 10 points. Not to mention, on the other end of the court, they would score consistently. They would keep the pressure on you. They would keep, 2-for-1 baskets against you, get the score up by 20 points. And you really had to just pretty much almost relinquish the game at that point. Once they got up on you by 20 points, there's really no comeback. And that's what typically UVA has been. And they've done a great job of that. But like I was saying about Caden being back in the middle, I hope Tony Bennett starts him again. Big game this weekend. They got Duke coming to town. And I can tell you, I'm never a fan of Duke. I kind of, and I hate to say it like this, I kind of make Duke the equivalent of the Philadelphia Eagles in my eyes. I cannot stand the Eagles. If there is a fan base that I dislike the most, it's probably the Eagles. Same thing with the Duke Blue Devils. If there's a fan base I dislike the most, it would probably be the Duke Blue Devils. And this is a game where Duke has struggled, and I'm going to bring up the triangle. We're talking, North Carolina, the UNC Tar Heels. We're talking about the Duke Blue Devils. We're talking about NC State, Duke Blue Devils, and the NC State Wolfpack. If these three teams, which to me, I think their best team is probably NC State, right now, out of that triangle. If UVA can go undefeated against the triangle, I'm going to do a backflip. I think it'd be amazing. I think, Duke, who is not one of their typical better teams that you would look for from them. I'm thinking Duke had an opportunity to be a good team this year, but it seems like the ACC is down. But Duke is not up either. So that's something we need to keep a lookout on. This Saturday, I will be in the building. I will do a pregame. I will do a postgame. You guys make sure you check me out. I'm going to have a really, really good time up there. But I think that Duke is, is primed for a blowout against Virginia Tech. Against Virginia. Of course, Virginia Tech has already beat them. But I'm looking for Virginia to put a whooping on Duke this Saturday. They're coming to the JPJ. Duke is kind of down. Virginia's coming off a huge win against the Wolfpack. Could this be, the time when Virginia just takes off? They got, what do we got? 7 games left, right now. And UVA really is in a position, at 18-4. So what is that? 7 wins. That'll put them at 25-4 going into tournament play. I'm still hunting, still looking for a number 1 seed. Coming out of Charlottesville. Okay, the next 7 games they got Duke. All right, then they got Louisville, who has only won 1 game. Then they got Notre Dame, who has a losing record. BC, they beat them already. They have a losing record as well. They got UNC. That's going to be a big game in UNC because UNC definitely is trying to redeem themselves, and still trying to stay face. They're the defending national champions. And if they can, they're going to be looking to get another quad 1 win against the Cavaliers. I don't know if they can do it, but they're going to definitely try. They took a really bad loss. Absolutely horrible loss. They were down by 30 points at one time against Wake Forest this weekend. Wake Forest just absolutely shredded them, and Appleby really showed why he's should be in the running for ACC Player of the Year. One of the top players in assists and top 3 scorer in the league as well. So Appleby put a show on, and UNC is definitely in trouble. So they'll come in. They'll be welcoming UVA to North Carolina to Chapel Hill, trying to get them to make mistakes, and they have to win that game. Then after the UNC game, they got Clemson. I want to see what Clemson's made of. Can Clemson run the table? They got themselves another 6 games left, I believe. Can Clemson run the table? Can Clemson keep it up? I don't know. Next time maybe I'm on, I will try to get you Clemson's remaining schedule. But can they make it? I don't know if they can. I'm looking for maybe 2 to 3 losses. I know Virginia has them next to the last game of the year. But that's a huge game as well. And I believe they're coming to Charlottesville. Let me make sure of that, because that is definitely a game that I would love to try to get to if it's that weekend. Give me a second, viewers and listeners and fans and friends. But that Clemson game is definitely going to be the game that we have to, it could come down to who's going to win the ACC regular season. And then you jump into the tournament. Yep, that is a game Tuesday. Clemson comes February 28th, the last day of February, last day of my birthday month. So be looking out for that game. Then, of course, last game of the year, they got Louisville. And like I said before, they've only won 1 conference game this season. So UVA is sitting pretty, man. They got 2 tough games out of the next. Well, 3 tough games in the last 7. And if they can win most of these, and maybe there's a 1 loss in there somewhere, they should rule the roost and take that number 1 seed. But, this is where we are, as far as the team. And be looking out for me on Saturday. And, Locked On Virginia will be in the house talking that talk, speaking about those Wahoos. Thanks again for making Locked On Virginia your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, hear from big name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, everybody. Be on the lookout. We will be in the building for the Duke and Virginia game this weekend.